Once upon a time, in a small remote village, there lived two brothers together. The older brother was blind, while the younger brother was a hard-working farmer. Every day, the younger brother went to the fields to work, but their crops were frequently destroyed by wild animals. The younger brother was extremely worried and eventually came up with a solution. He suggested to his older brother that he go to the fields, and if he heard any animals, he should just shout to scare them away. The older brother agreed and started this task. Whenever he heard the sound of animals, he would shout, and they would run away. One day, a deer ran across the field, breaking the fence and escaping. Shortly afterward, King, who was chasing the deer, arrived at the field. The king saw the older brother and asked, "Did you see a deer run by here?" The older brother replied, "Your Majesty, I am blind. How could I see a deer? But I can tell you that the animal that just left this field is not worth your pursuit. You are wasting your time." The king was astonished and asked, "How do you know that?" The older brother responded, "Your Majesty, the animal you think is a deer is actually a pregnant doe. I have never heard of a king chasing a pregnant deer, so I say it is not worth your pursuit." The king was even more amazed and ordered his commander, "I want that animal alive. I need to confirm if it is indeed a pregnant doe." The commander obeyed and upon returning, confirmed that the older brother was right. The doe was indeed pregnant. The king could not understand how a blind man could know this. He decided to ask further, "Are you truly blind? How could you know this?" The older brother replied, "Your Majesty, I can answer any of your questions accurately. You can ask me anything, and I will answer you sincerely." King continued, "Then tell me, is my wife faithful to me?" The older brother answered, "Your Majesty, this question is not appropriate. You have been married for many years. Why are you asking this now?" But the king insisted, "You must answer this question, or I will have you executed." The older brother replied, "Your Majesty, if you want the answer, you must let your wife be alone with me in a room." The king was annoyed, but eventually agreed. The older brother said he wanted to touch the queen. Hearing this, Queen became furious and beat the older brother with all her might. After that, the older brother fled and went to the king, saying, "Your Majesty, your wife is not faithful." King angrily drew his sword and went to the queen, demanding she answer truthfully. The queen admitted she was not faithful. The king was astonished as everything the older brother said was true. The king asked the older brother, "How did you know my wife was unfaithful?" The older brother replied, "Your Majesty, I asked the queen to touch me, and she was so angry that she beat me. If she were faithful, she would not have reacted so strongly." The king realized the older brother's intelligence and asked further, "Can you tell me if I am truly my father's son?" The older brother replied, "Your Majesty, this does not matter. You are the king of this land, so why worry about this?" But the king insisted, "I want to know the truth." The older brother answered, "You are your father's son, but you are also influenced by a miserly merchant." King asked his mother, and she confirmed this was true. The king was amazed and asked, "How did you know this?" The older brother replied, "Your Majesty, you asked me many questions, and I answered them all correctly. But you never rewarded me. This shows that you are miserly." The king laughed heartily and said, "You are indeed intelligent. Tell me, how can you answer all questions so accurately?" The older brother replied, "Your Majesty, I was born blind, but I can understand people's thoughts through their actions. The language of the mind is expressed through the eyes, lips, and body gestures. One pays attention to these things, they can understand others' thoughts." King asked, "So can I also understand others' thoughts?" The older brother replied, "Certainly. But first, you must calm your mind and focus on the present." The older brother continued to explain 3 ways to read others' thoughts. The first is to pay attention to the eyes. The eyes do not speak, but they reveal many things. If you learn to understand signals from the eyes, you can know others' thoughts. The second is to pay attention to facial expressions. The face is a canvas reflecting inner emotions. If you observe facial expressions, you can understand others' emotions and thoughts. The final way is through gestures and body language. When people speak, they often move their hands and make gestures. You can understand their thoughts through these gestures and body language. The older brother concluded, If you focus on the present and pay attention to these things, you will understand others' thoughts. First, you must calm your mind and bring your focus to the present. The king thanked the older brother and applied these lessons to his life. From then on, he became a wise and understanding king, always able to read the minds and emotions of those around him. This story not only teaches us how to understand others, but also emphasizes the importance of living in the present and calming the mind to perceive the world more clearly.